Thank you for joining me again to talk some more NBA playoff basketball. I just finished watching the end of the second round as I was relieved to have the Boston Celtics win Game 7 at home in convincing fashion over the Philadelphia 76ers. So now we know what our Final Four matchup is for the two conference finals. And I wanted to just take a little bit of time and look back on the matchups we just had, have some thoughts on the matchups we're going to have, and then some other things around the league. So I've been trying to keep these videos pretty short because I know nobody wants to listen to me talk that long about basketball, but there's just a lot to talk about. So first things first, I want to talk about my predictions for this last round. In the Western Conference, Nuggets versus Suns, I predicted that the Nuggets would win 4-2, and feeling really great about how that one turned out because the Nuggets won 4-2. Now, was I helped out in my prediction by the fact that the Suns had injury issues with Chris Paul going out and then with Ayton not even playing the last game? Sure, that probably helped my cause, but what I was really banking on was the fact that the Nuggets were really good, that they could have the best player in the series in Jokic, that their continuity meant more and meant something than the Suns being slapped together, and ultimately what I really didn't like about the Suns is that even though they had a ton of talent, they had too many guys that wanted to be, or were used to being, the guy, and you just need glue guys. You need dirty work players, and I don't think they knew who their role players were. I don't think their role players knew how to be that guy. And the Nuggets, they just know who they are. They've got guys like KCP and Aaron Gordon who know their role and are going to play that role, and they're just a better team for it. And so that's why they won 4-2, despite brilliant games from Booker and Durant, who just... Frankly, you cannot win with individual talent over a great team when that great team also has some great individual talent, like Jokic, like Murray, who on any given night can be just a scoring machine on his own. The other series, though, I don't get to feel so good about because I predicted that the Warriors would win 4-2 over the Lakers. It went the other way. I knew it was a matchup of different strengths. The Lakers, obviously, with their size, the Warriors with their shooting, being able to spread them out, and I thought that's what win the day because usually shooting does win in the modern NBA, and I thought they'd figure out how to attack the Lakers, how to draw Anthony Davis from the hoop so that they could attack the basket and also make him defend in space. But really what happened was Curry was the only good, dependable Warriors the whole series. Klay had moments, but he's just not the old Klay Thompson. Draymond's just still not much of an offensive threat. Jordan Poole became unplayable because of turnovers and bad defense. And so they're really Steph dependent, and then the Lakers defense is really good. It was just too much to ask of Steph. And then the Lakers offense was pretty decent. When AD is healthy, he is a monster. He's a monster defensively. He's really tough to stop scoring inside. Even if you've got good defenders like Looney and Draymond, AD is going to be tough. And then LeBron's LeBron. So Austin Reeves having a good game. Lonnie Walker having the Lonnie Walker game. I mean, that stuff swings a series when you've got dependable talent and then role players playing well. And the Warriors, they didn't have any of those games. They didn't have the DiVincenzo game or the, any of their young guys game. They didn't even really have a Klay game. I know everybody's hoping that was going to be Game 6 Klay, but it just didn't happen. So now we get Nuggets versus the Lakers. I don't know what to do with this one because I'm so scared that I'm underestimating the Lakers and they're going to end up in the finals. But my head and my heart say the Nuggets are going to win this thing, that this is Jokic's year to get to the championship. And I feel good about it, so my prediction is going to be Nuggets winning in 6. They've took care of business against the Timberwolves in 5. They took care of business against the Suns in 6. I think they're going to do the same against the Lakers. Here's why I believe in the Nuggets. As awesome as AD has been, Jokic is a better player than AD. They have that advantage in that matchup. I think Murray is better than any of the Lakers guards. I don't think anybody would argue with me on that. So you've got Jokic as an advantage, you've got Murray as an advantage, and then LeBron is obviously an advantage for the Lakers, but Aaron Gordon is a great defender. He just showed it in the way that he defended Kevin Durant. It doesn't mean he's going to shut down LeBron, and LeBron's not going to do anything, but it's what you want to throw at LeBron. LeBron's got to make up the difference of Murray and Jokic, and having Aaron Gordon slowing him down, that's just tough. I just think the Nuggets have more, they're deeper, and I think they're going to win this series. I think they'll win it in 6, and then the Nuggets are going to make it to the finals. In the Eastern Conference, The Miami Heat, I predicted would win a 7-game series over the Knicks. They won it in 6. I could not have predicted how bad the Knicks offense would be in this series. I didn't think they were a great offense, but man, it basically came down to just Jalen Brunson was their entire offense. Julius Randle no-showed several games. Tough look for the Knicks. I thought the most telling thing was near the end of the final game. Jalen Brunson started to drive. The Heat just sent 2 at him. They left Josh Hart. And Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, they are boys. They played together at Villanova. Brunson was so psyched to have Hart come join him in New York. Brunson looked back and saw Hart wide open the three-point line and said, "Nah, I'm not giving it to that guy." Because he knew Hart can't shoot. He's not going to give it to him to miss a shot. Hart was like, "Give me the ball, I'm wide open." And Brunson turned and he tried instead to thread a needle pass into a cutting Randle, and it just turned over. And they lost. And I was like, that sums up what happened. Brunson was like, "I can't trust the other guys. Even a guy that I love, like Josh Hart, I can't trust him." And so the Heat advance. They didn't even get, Jimmy Butler didn't have to be playoff Jimmy in this series like he was against the Bucks. Hopefully he wasn't just saving everything up for the next round. Bam Adebayo, I did think looked a lot better than he did in round 1, but that's to be expected. I mean, when you go from going against the best defensive front court with Lopez and Giannis to going against the Knicks front court, who's not bad. Mitchell Robinson's good. He's just not Lopez and Giannis. Bam looked better. All right, finally, Celtics and Sixers. I predicted that the Celtics would win in 5. I just thought they had the Sixers number. Well, as it played out, like by the end, you're like, yeah, they have the Sixers number. That's why they kicked their butts in Game 7, and the Sixers looked like they didn't have a chance mentally. But you asked me 2 games ago, I wouldn't have said that. My faith wavered, I will admit that. When the Sixers were up 3-2, the Celtics just looked like they could not get it together. Tatum was having these awful starts to games. They couldn't finish games. It just looked like a mess. But you know what? All's well that ends well. The Celtics figured it out. They played a great Game 7. Jason Tatum was awesome. They advanced. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how you do it. It just matters that you survive and advance. So now, Boston versus Miami. Do I feel more confident about Boston now that they got through the Sixers? No. So I'm predicting that this game goes 7. And I'm predicting that the Celtics win. But I'm not doing it with a lot of confidence. Just like I think the Celtics have had the Sixers number, the Heat always play the Celtics really tough. This is the 3rd time in the last 4 years that they have met in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're 1-1, so this is the rubber match. I do think the Celtics have more talent. I think Miami has the coaching edge, and I think they have the best player on the court edge more than likely. Now, again, Tatum was so awesome this game, it's hard to say, but as my friend Woody, who is a Heat fan, texted me that Tatum was doing his best Jimmy Butler impression. He kind of meant it as a joke, but it was also like true. Jimmy's done it a bunch in these playoffs, and Tatum did it in this game, but I fear Butler. I just always will fear Butler in the Heat when the Celtics play him. Now, it should be a totally different kind of matchup. I think reputationally, people would say the Miami Heat, great defensive team. Spoelstra's got a great mind for defense. Butler's a defensive stud. Adebayo's a defensive stud. But I actually think it's the Heat offense that's more scary. And on the flip side, I think it's the Celtics defense that is more scary. They don't have anything to deal with quite like Embiid in this series. Adebayo's a different animal. He is not going to post up and try to kill you down low. He's also not going to catch the ball at the nail and turn and face and hit jumper after jumper. Because Adebayo doesn't like to be the focal point of offense, at least as far as scoring. He likes to be the guy who distributes out of the high post from the elbow or with handoffs. So he's more of a playmaker. I think he's a great matchup for Al Horford. The problem is the Celtics had a lot of success in these last 2 games with Rob Williams as the 5th starter, and they put him on PJ Tucker, who was sort of the nominal power forward for the Sixers, and they just let him leave PJ Tucker for the most part. Dared PJ Tucker to be the one to beat you because he's not a great 3-point shooter, can only shoot it from the corner, and then that let Rob Williams just roam and muck up things on defense, clog up the lane, make it harder for the Sixers to score in there. The Heat, though, start Kevin Love, who does nothing but stand on the perimeter and knock down threes. So you cannot put Rob Williams on him and say, just leave him. So it'll be interesting to see if the Celtics go back to a smaller lineup in order to match up better, and then say, Kevin Love, you're going to have to chase some of our, guards around. I mean, if they go Smart, White, Brown, Tatum, and Horford, how are the Heat going to do matchups if they start Kevin Love? Put him on White or Smart, maybe. Maybe you put Love on Horford and you have Adebayo guard one of those guys. I'm not sure. It's definitely going to be a chess move thing. And then after they, move on from Kevin Love, they'll bring in Martin, and he likes to play on the perimeter too and shoot shots. So I just think it's going to be a more perimeter-oriented game. And I think the Celtics just have more punch. I am nervous about this, though. Duncan Robinson, I'm already mad for the game where he hits like 8 threes. Because I root for the guy. I hope he gets out of this slump he's been in. Every game I watched of the Heat in this postseason that he got into, I was like, maybe this will be your game, Duncan Robinson. Maybe you'll hit a bunch of threes in this game. And he never really had that game. He had a couple games where he hit a few, but I just know he's going to do it against the Celtics now. When I don't want it, he's going to hit 8 threes. Max Strus will have games where he gets hot and scores 20 and a half. Gabe Vincent is fearless with shooting, and he'll hit big shots. They just have so many guys that you're afraid of that can step up and swing a game. So that's why, even though I think the Celtics have the more balanced, talented from top to bottom roster, the top end with Jimmy, and then just the ability of the Heat guys to get hot for a game and swing a game makes me think that they'll push it to the very brink in the series. All right, so that's my predictions for going forward. Again, my final 4, I've got Nuggets over Lakers in 6. I've got Celtics over Heat in 7. All right, last thing I want to talk about is some of the changes that teams are making who have been eliminated from the playoffs, mainly about coaches, because a couple teams have already shook things up. The Milwaukee Bucks fired Mike Budenholzer, and the Phoenix Suns fired Monty Williams, which is especially wild considering just 2 years ago, these guys were competing against each other in the NBA Finals, and now how quickly things change. They're both unemployed. That said, I don't know that I really have a problem with what either of the franchises did moving on from these guys. See a lot of reaction on social media where people are talking about how much success the teams have had under these coaches and how could you fire them and how unfair it is what they did, especially thinking about the injuries that the Suns had in Monty Williams' case, or the fact that Coach Bud has won a championship with Milwaukee. So there's all sorts of reasons you could point to and say that they should have kept these guys, which is fine. But I do think when you are running these franchises, the only question you have to ask yourself with coaches or player personnel or anything is not, have they done well for me in the past and therefore deserve to keep their job? The question is always just, are they the best choice for us going forward? And that's where I think these teams had to be looking in order to make these decisions. Bud has been great for Milwaukee. He came in there and really helped them develop into a winner. I think they were already headed that way with Giannis emerging as an MVP level talent. But Bud is great at putting in a system, at developing a culture and discipline and saying, we're going to do things this way, we're going to stick to it, we're going to be committed to it. And it really helped the Bucks become a winning organization. And again, they won the championship. But I do think he's a great game planner. I don't think he's necessarily a great game manager. Obviously, he gets criticized for that a lot, maybe unfairly so at times. But I do think the Bucks could look at it and say, we've got a great base now. We've got a culture of winning. We've got a great team. We have a championship-level team that just got beat in the first round. I think if we have a different coach who's maybe a little more of an in-game tinkerer, then we have something going forward that could work better. I joked that I think it'd be funny for them to hire Nick Nurse, just to go from the coach who won't change anything to the coach who will try anything in a game. I don't know if they're even going to look at Nick Nurse, but they might actually. That's a thing that could happen now. Wouldn't that be interesting? In Monty Williams' case, I think the biggest issue facing the Suns is the age of Chris Paul and whatever has happened to DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is not the same player right now that he was 2 years ago when they made it to the finals. They need somebody who can get DeAndre Ayton back on track, and there's been a well-known sort of rift between the two. They didn't talk all of last season, and so I think they're going to look at that and go, I don't know if all the guys are getting to the point where they tune out Monty Williams. Larry Bird used to say, coaches, max 3 years, and then people start tuning you out. Maybe that's sort of the case, but at least their guy they need most to turn around has probably stopped listening to Monty Williams, and so they probably need somebody else who's going to come in and be a fresh voice, and maybe can get DeAndre Ayton back on track, because they need him to either be good for them or be good enough to be flipped for a different asset, because right now he's not good enough to help them win, and he's not looking like a great trade asset with a pretty sizable contract and is not living up to it. So, I don't know who either of these teams should go after, because that's always the big question. Again, I've stated the reasons why I think they probably moved on. I don't know what the answers are for who do you move to. I joked about Nick Nurse for Milwaukee, but also I think Nick Nurse is a little bit of a mad scientist and can annoy his players because he just wants to tinker and change things. I think he's a guy who likes coaching too much, and that can be a problem because sometimes in the NBA you just need to back off and let the players play. So I don't know, and I don't know who's going to be the voice that gets through to Ayton. There might not be that voice. Ayton just might be a guy who doesn't love competing in basketball. Could just be who he is. Lastly, I think Doc Rivers is probably out in Philadelphia. When you're a team with championship aspirations and you lose earlier than you want a few years in a row, it's usually a sign you're probably going to get moved, just because the coach is the easiest thing to change. I don't know that Doc ever felt like a Daryl Morey guy. He got hired right before Daryl Morey did, and so Daryl I don't think was going to come in immediately and be like, let's undo that and get rid of Doc. But after some playoff failures, I think Daryl might be like, okay, now it's time. Move off of Doc, bring more of a guy in that's my speed, more my tempo. And, I feel bad for Doc. I'm always going to love Doc for the Celtics championship, for the Ubuntu Celtics. But man, he has a reputation following him now, much like James Harden, that he's not the coach you want in the big game. So I don't know. I don't know what could be Doc's next job, but I think next year maybe we'll have announcer Doc Rivers at some of these games instead. Well, that's all I'm going to talk about for now. At some point, I'm going to talk about some of the player personnel decisions that these teams have going forward, but I'll maybe say that for just an after the playoffs off-season video. So thank you again for joining me, and if you listen to this whole thing, I appreciate it.